Okay, very good. All right, so we're recording. Uh, Anton, good to talk to you again.
Same here. Thank you
Um,
for your flexibility and rescheduling so quickly.
yeah, no problem. That happens, so that's not a problem. Um, yeah, could we go through or go over who all is on the line, just so I can know who our audience is and how many people we have and that sort of thing? That'd be great. And if you could just say your role as well, that'd be very helpful.
Well, I see that Jamie is in pretty much we're all sysadmins, just maybe a different level, but it's the same, all sysadmins.
Okay, yeah. And do you know how many people total will be joining us today?
No,
Around?
it was not mandatory. I just sent it out to all of my colleagues to see who is interested.
Okay, very
Good
good.
morning. This is Angela Colvin. I am the manager of the data center. I'm polling the people right now. I was just checking in. I may have to jump off here soon for another meeting, but I'm just checking to make sure that some of the folks are able to get in. Everybody, we have some folks that come in at 9 o'clock, and so there may be a couple of stragglers coming here in just a few minutes, but you're more than welcome to go ahead and get started.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So
Yeah,
I'm
welcome, boss.
one of the main things to that we're going to go over today is so there's a couple things. One, just a general tutorial on navigating Nlyte and getting around and where things are and understanding how to do a few simple tasks in Nlyte. That way, when you guys get into the hosted evaluation that we've set up for you, that you'll know, oh yeah, that's how I create an asset. That's the difference between an asset and a material, and those sort of things. It just really helps to avoid frustration of the how do I drive frustration whenever you're evaluating any product. So this is we found a helpful step for whenever people get into the evaluation. The second piece is then how to log on to your evaluation environment. So what we've done, we've set up an evaluation environment for you guys to log into to get some work done. And that is a full sandbox that you guys are able to play in. And so all of the details and data that I'll go over in Nlyte are going to be available to you in this tutorial will be available to you in your evaluation instance. So that's all of the demo data that you'll see. You'll be able to create users. You'll be able to log into remote desktop into these servers so that you can look at just evaluate whatever you like, how it's set up, how the permissions are set up. You'll be able to RDP into the database, whatever you want. It's your sandbox. You can't hurt it. Hopefully you'll have free reign to do whatever you like. So the very first thing that we'll see here, and at the end of this just basic tutorial of how to drive, then I'll show you how to log into Nlyte from your instance. Just a few basic things I'll show you first are just going to be from my Nlyte instance here locally on my laptop. If I go into URL, what I'll see is just a place for me to enter my credentials. And like I said, I'll provide your credentials here in just a moment. But if you look at this login screen here, you just give it your username and password, and then you're able to log in, and you'll be presented with the Nlyte home screen. Just to give you guys a general sense of where you are in the product, what you'll see is you've got a number of modules that are here across the top of Nlyte. And the ones that we'll mostly be focusing on for evaluation purposes are here in the floor.
Sorry for interruption, but are we supposed to be seeing slides right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you are. 1 second.
All right, thanks.
There you go. Can you see that?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay. Let me know if there seems to be a lot of lag or something like that. Just give me a warning if you're like, man, you're 40 seconds ahead of where your mouse is going. I will I'll restart my router here. Okay. So just to show you, across the top of the screen here in this upper left-hand corner, you'll see a menu bar that shows a number of a number of Nlyte modules that are all included as part of Nlyte Enterprise Edition. That are, these are not, these are standard, right? These are things that you would see in any Nlyte instance. The ones that we'll focus on mostly, because that's where you would do a majority of your work, is in the floor planner and in workflow, analytics, so look at reports and dashboards, and then if you wanted to create any assets or any materials, you could do that from this little data center module here, which is where we are right now. And then also I'll bring your attention to this quick search bar that allows us to search for assets and materials and other things that are in Nlyte very easily, to be able to find things that we know where they are already. I don't want to navigate all the way through with a million clicks to get down into what I want. I just want to search for it and go directly to it. If we look at the data center module, one of the things that we'll see is that we've got a number of things, right? We have things that are existing here in the data center. You have servers and cabinets and infrastructure of the data center, network components. You'll see here a materials catalog and then templates. So I think it's important just a definition set at the beginning of, what are these things? What do they mean to Nlyte? Right? We all have an idea of what some of these things mean to us, but in the Nlyte world, this can be helpful. So what we'll see is, and you can see it here, and even in this drop-down, we have the concept of assets and materials, and it's important to know the difference between the two. A material is a definition of a IT asset. So like a HP DL380 would be a material. A C7000 chassis or an APC 48U rack, those are materials. Whenever I say I have 10, let's say I have 10 APC net shelter racks, and I want to create 10 of those to reflect the same properties as the material in Nlyte, those would be called assets. Those 10 would be called assets. So the instantiation of the definition of that material would be an asset. So it's your material, the materials that you're giving context into your data center would become assets. So if I I can look at materials that are in the materials catalog from here. I can go ahead and create any materials that I like. So if I have, if I go into Nlyte and I start to search for materials, which I can do very easily here, in the search box. If I look for something that I'm trying to create in my data center, so say I want to create a particular server of some kind, and it's something that's like a standard server in an industry, a Dell or an HP server that is out there. You will most likely find that in Nlyte already. That material is already created. We have about 10,000 materials that exist in our materials library, and we keep that library up to date. So that is something that you as customers would be able to periodically download updates to that materials library. Those updates happen roughly every 45 days, 30 to 45 days, to say, let me go out and go on my customer portal and see if there's a new DAT file to download into Nlyte to update my materials. There may be instances where especially for organization like yours, you may have custom equipment, or you may have proprietary equipment, or things that are not available to the public. So you may have to, create materials yourself, and you're able to do that here through this data center, this materials catalog module, where you're able to create materials yourself. So I could come into create server material, and I would just start to give it some dimensions, right? I'd give it its name. If there's a manufacturer, if there's not, I can provide, just generic, and give it a model number. If it's a server type, if it's something that's modular, that would be like a blade or a standard server. And then I can say, well, this is the plate value for the power. This is the height and the depth and the width and how much it weighs, and how it's mounted. Is it floor standing, or is it shelf standing, or is it mounted in the rack? How does its airflow defined? Is it front to back, or left to right, or top to bottom? Its power type, any plug information, so how many total plugs are required and how many does it have? So a number of properties that I can use here to define my server material that would be, some sort of proprietary equipment. Or maybe it's something that's legacy, right? Something that you wouldn't expect Nlyte to have. It's 20 years old, but we still need to track where it is. So that's a way that you could go and create any materials that you like. Now, if you are going through Nlyte and you're starting to create, you want to create assets, and you're noticing, well, there's a family of materials I'm expecting to see in Nlyte, and I don't see them. What you can do also as an Nlyte customer is request materials to be created as part of a support request. And those materials are turned around in 10 business days. So that gives us, a nice coverage of, I can wait for the update to get the latest materials update that would be Nlyte supplied. I can create my own, or I can request Nlyte to create materials for me. An instance where we just recently had someone create materials, we created materials for someone, was they had some solid state storage devices that were relatively new to the market. And so they said, well, we've got a bunch of this stuff and we don't see it in your materials catalog. Could you create this for us as part of a support request? And we did that, right? And we had that, I think it's Pure Storage, I think was the solid state drives that we brought into the materials library. So now that's there. So that's how we go ahead and we would create something from scratch. If I went and searched for something that might already be there, I can use this search bar. So if I wanted to say, like a DL380, then I can put little wildcards on each side, and I can say, the DL380, I got several versions of the DL380, and maybe I don't have 9, maybe I want to check out 8. So this is what a completed material would look like. This is Nlyte supplied. You can see that we include the images. We also include the same set of dimensions and properties that we request of a material that's created from scratch. So standard server, 19-inch rack, mount, front to back, vented. We've got dimensions, and then we've got even power information here. So your power information can be, can have a plate value, but they can also have a derated value. So wherever you see this in Nlyte, this is MPAF, mean power adjustment factor. That's just derated value. So you can always override that and put it into a factor of whatever you'd like. Power type, one phase, plugs, total plugs, and which ones are required. Anytime I would take a material like this and then say, give it context in my data center, if I wanted to create an asset from this material, I would just come to actions. So I'm in the material record here. I could come to actions, and I could create an asset from this material. And when I do that, that gives me Tony's, a DL380. number one, right? I can create 100 of these. I can create 10 of these, whatever I want. And then this gives me this DL380 is now mine, right? I inherit all the properties of what a DL380 is in Nlyte. Does that make sense to everybody? The difference between materials and assets. Are there any questions around those sort of things, around what do we include, or asset types, or how do we go ahead and create an asset from a material?
That sounds good.
Okay. So if I went ahead and I created this asset, now you'll see that it enters, an asset record here. So I can see that asset name is Tony's DL380, number one, and I've got a number of properties and a number of relationships that then I can define for this asset. And we'll get back to this Tony's DL380 here in a second, but I just wanted to show you how that's done and how you can create an asset from scratch. So, a big part of Nlyte is taking our materials, taking assets, and then visualizing them on the data center floor. Visualizing so we can understand the relationship to where they are physically in the data center and where they are in the rack, but then also how do they relate to one another, right? How are they connected by networks, or by network connections, or how are they connected to power? And so that is done, that visualization and also that relationship building can be done through the floor planner. When we look at the floor planner, what we're given immediately is this location picker. And the location picker allows us to expand the locations that we'll be trying to find information, or we can just search for it through the search bar. So I have a room in here called the blue room, and I can just type, a part of whatever name I'm looking for, hit enter, and then it automatically expands this into its different parts. We break things down by region and country, city. So the city, building. So we might have several buildings in one city that have our data center assets. A building may have several floors. Those floors may have several rooms. Those rooms may have several areas that may include data center assets. It's important to kind of think about how you might want to break this down and how you want to organize this, especially as you get down to the areas of a room piece, because each of these have their own, it's like their own container, right, that have properties of, how much do I have, how many resources do I have in this container, how many am I using, and how many do I have left. So if I have, only so many kW available to this room, then I can say, well, this is the percentage of what I'm using and what I have left. Also, you can define role-based access into the system based off of permissions that you and things that you want to let people do. So if I wanted to just say, well, the network folks are only able to edit network equipment, and the server folks are only able to edit server equipment, and they can read each other's information, but they can't change it. Also, if you wanted to then break that down to location and say, well, I don't want the blue room people seeing what's in the bronze room, and I don't want the bronze room people seeing what's in the blue room, or I don't want pod 1 people to see what's in pod 2 and vice versa. So that is another reason why it's good to think and plan ahead of how do you want to break this down, because you can have role-based access into each of these areas. So let me dive down into one of these. So I'll go into the blue room. And all of this information is identical on your evaluation lab, right? You'll have the blue room, the bronze room, the green room, the white room, all of that you'll be able to go through and search and change and do whatever you like. And you can also create your own rooms. So if you wanted to create a whole new structure on, let me create a test room and create whatever assets you like, you're able to do that as well in your evaluation version. So what happened here is that Nlyte renders what it has in its repository database every time you refresh this screen, right? Every time I come into the Blue Room or do another search or refresh something, then Nlyte is rendering what it has in its repository database. And the benefits of that is that you're going to see the latest and greatest, the best visualization of your data that you can. You don't have, this is not a static drawing. This is not a copy of a Visio or an AutoCAD file, right? This is a number of people coming in and making moves, adds, and changes, and you're getting the cumulative or the aggregate of all of those moves, adds, and changes that have occurred. And so what I'm looking at here is not only a drawing tool of, let me draw the walls and let me draw the doorways and the columns and things like that, but it's also a planning tool, right? It's a tool that's allowing me to plan current locations of my assets, but then also future locations or reservations that I would want to make of my assets within the data center. So that's what I'm seeing here. This is a top-down view or a bird's eye view of my existing Blue Room. And I understand the assets that are in each of these cabinets. I understand the cabinet properties, and I can start to do some pretty cool things from here. Any questions so far about what we're looking at and about the Blue Room, or how you intend to use this here as part of your in your existing location? What do you guys currently have for, and Anton, if you could refresh my memory of what you are currently using for managing this type of information?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, what are you currently using to manage this, to do something similar to this, as far as, are you using Visio or AutoCAD or Excel spreadsheets, or do you guys have an existing tool that you're using to manage this stuff?
We actually use several tools. There is an Excel file, there is a CMDB system. Mm-hmm. What else? There is several modules of structureware.
Yep.
So it's not a single pane of glass, let's put it this way.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem, and that's definitely not uncommon. So this will help do that, right? This helps bring it all into one place where we can have multiple people with different roles come in and make their changes, or to look at information. So here, just to give you a what am I looking at and how do I do stuff? If you look on the left-hand side here, you'll see this is maybe one of the most important parts of this screen, is this edit button. This tends to hide from people whenever they're evaluating, is that there's a little edit button here that if I want to make any changes or move things around on this screen, I have to open this into edit mode so I can make a change. Once I do that, then I can, take this cabinet and say, well, you're not there anymore, you're over here. Right, so that allows me to move things around and move things back in and orient things however I want them, and then save my changes. So just keep in mind that whenever then you make a change, then you can go ahead and save that action, and you'll be back to or don't save it and you'll be back to where you were. So just keep in mind that that's a place where you can make an edit of the floor plan. Yeah.
May I ask a question real quick? You mentioned the access, role-based access, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, right away, I get a picture of, could we possibly set up maybe like a little kiosk for our customers, different departments, where we would give them read-only rights to things, where they would be able to come up to a kiosk, sign in, and see all of their assets right away, where they are at the moment, you know.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. So you could have, I mean, I would encourage that to be maybe the first step where you would have, you know, an admin group and then a read-only group, right? So and so yeah, you could have read-only access into only your assets. And so if I were coming into the blue room, for example, and all my assets are only, so I can do like a quick well, maybe not here. All of my assets are in, you know, pod 4, and I'm only able to see pod 4 and none of the other ones. These all would be then grayed out, right? You would not see anything here. You would see that there's something there. We don't want you to think there's nothing in the room and you walk in and there's all sorts of stuff in the room. You'll know that there are things there, but they'll be all grayed out. You won't be able to see any of the asset names, the labels, or anything like that. But then pod 4 would be available to you for you to drill down into and look at details and statistics of. So that would be absolutely a possibility if you wanted to create read-only access to the asset level for people to have view capabilities into.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So just a couple other things here whenever you are looking to drive around in Nlyte. If you open up this edit mode, you're given a few other options here. You can always move around. But if you wanted to build a wall or measure something or create an area, so just like a pod or a network cage is an area, this area tool allows me, where is it? There it is, to create walkways and areas within the data center. So just an example of, say, I wanted to create a walkway here in between these two pods that I want to make sure that, sorry. So I can create this area. So the area can be something that you can draw a line around to say, I want to know what is in this, right? This is another container I can put stuff in, or it could be something that, like an area, a pod, a cage, a container, a module, a zone, right? That these all might be different areas. Or I can create a walkway, and a walkway does the opposite, right? A walkway is a place where I want to remove from available usable space. So this is a walkway. Don't put anything here. Okay, this is I need to be able to get into these cabinets. Please don't put anything else here in this area. And what this does is it subtracts away from the usable space, the usable floor space as a whole, right? So if this is, however many by however many, then I can subtract this area from the usable floor space of where I'm able to place equipment or whatever I want. So it's a nice way to make sure that nobody else is putting stuff where you don't want it, and it also makes it a little bit more accurate as far as usable floor space that I have on my data center. Other things here are grid reference tool. If I want to sort of look at, what part of of an asset am I using as the reference point for where my grid location is. If that makes sense, this would be D4. But if I wanted to make the reference point somewhere here in the middle, then all of a sudden this would be, well, I guess it would be C4 before, now it's C5, C6, depending on where I want this reference point to be. And then, of course, then I can recycle or remove anything from the data center floor just by throwing it in the recycling bin. So let me get that off there so I can keep my demo data okay. What else can I show you guys here? Oh, so if I wanted to drill down and look at any asset, I can just click on an asset. I can click on, PDU, or I can click on a cabinet. You'll get different behavior over here based off of that, right? I might see like viewing an asset, or this is asset as a cabinet, so it has many assets inside of it. So I can then go into, a cabinet planner that will show me more details. or I can go into a row view, which will show me all of the assets in the row. I can just grab this all with a lasso. It'll give me 4 assets, or I can, do the old hold control and then select the ones that I want as I'm going through. So for this example, I'll just say, well, let's go ahead and launch a row view. And a row view is going to give me that rack elevation view as though I'm standing in front of the rack. And then here you can see that materials library that has all of the images and the properties as part of each material. You can really see these now as though you were standing in front of the rack. You'll see there's a number of labels that are already placed on the rack that would be, this will designate, well, am I looking at the front? Well, one, I can see I'm looking at the front of the rack here. I can enable this B, which shows me the back of the rack, right? So I can see the front and the back of the rack right next to each other if I wish. Oops. And then the labels, just to give you an idea of the designations here, this is showing me this F is that this is the front of this asset, right? So I could be looking at, and like in this case, I'm looking at the front of the rack, but I'm looking at the back of this asset just because of the way it's mounted. But here I'm looking at the front of the asset. This AO is showing me that this asset is active and operational, meaning if I walked up in front of the rack today, I'd see it, running, and it's in that position, and it's, doing its work. Something like this is PP, showing me planned procurement. So that means that this asset is not currently physically in this rack, but it's planned to be there. There's a reservation for this, looks like a network, it's probably a patch panel, network panel, that's going to be there at some point, right? So I can reserve the use space for it, I can reserve power for it, and I can reserve network ports for it before it even shows up on site, because I have these different record statuses and operational statuses that show me, this is a planned asset. I'm going to reserve this space for it. Don't put anything here, and get a visualization of what it would be like when it does move there. And then, of course, I have, the asset name is right after that. If I look at, some different visualization options here, I can, just one moment. I can see, I can hide, these labels altogether. I can hide the images altogether just if I wanted to see, those gray boxes. This is incidentally is what you would see if you did not have role-based access into these assets, right? If I had, and it's granular enough where if I have access to this one but not this one, then I would see this and the other one would be grayed out, right? It's not going to let me see the asset name. It's not going to let me click on it and get details, and it's not going to let me see what it looks like. So if you've got people that are remote, you can really hide, sort of what some of these things would look like. At this level, I can also reserve things for airflow. I can reserve markers. I can make detailed, just sort of reserving space as opposed to an asset if I like. And I can drill down into any one of these assets and get further details for them. If I look at this tab, if I look at, the details of the rack, this gives me sort of a, the maximum weight, this shows me, sort of my maximum weight limit. It shows me how close I am to that. It shows me the heat limit and the heat threshold. And the maximum manufacturer's power that could come into this. Some detailed asset information here. Purchase price. Is it active operational? Is it tagged with something? I can drill down into this for a more detailed view. I can also provide overlays, report overlays for these assets, just like the floor planner. But if I looked at something like let me see the derated value of the assets in this rack. I can use this overlay to show that information. And any of this, by the way, I can then export into an Excel spreadsheet, right? So I can always, right? So whatever that overlay is, then I'll see those details here on in that export. So there's something to play with there. Oh, where was I? There we go. So let's go a little bit further. Oh, one other thing I'll show you here. Business group is something else that you might want to think about, especially if you've got CMDB or other IT type properties that you may want to manage in Nlyte. We can integrate with an existing CMDB, or we can use different areas within Nlyte to store this information. So if you have this information already in the CMDB, we can integrate with it or share it with Nlyte however you like. And this is helpful because this is tying tying an IT property to a facilities property, right? This is showing me this is my account management group, and it's where are all of the assets that live in the account management group. How much space do they take up? How much power do they use every day? That sort of information, those sort of reports can then be examined or reported on or asked questions of. If I go into, so we can keep going deeper here. If I go, so right now I'm in a row view, and if I look at the details tab here, if I click on this rack, I can then go into a cabinet planner, and the cabinet planner is going to give me details about this singular cabinet. So let's look at that. So I've gone from, just to give you a sort of a review, I've gone from, and you can see here, these tabs stay open, so I can toggle back and forth between the two, but I can go, back into the blue room, so I can go back into the blue room where I came from, or I can go back to the row view. I can highlight a rack, and I can go into the cabinet planner, or I can go into the cabinet planner from the row view. So just I would play with this and get the, the understanding of navigating and sort of hopping between different views and different, and the details I can see in each one. So if I go into the let's just say we'll go into the cabinet planner from here, and I can always go back to the row view or the room view. But the difference in the cabinet planner here is this lets me do some what if scenarios or understand the relationship of an asset to the space that it consumes for a cabinet. So if I look at this, I can actually rotate this this cabinet, and I can see, the three-dimensional space that is consumed for an asset within the rack. So how much volume do I have left in this rack? And this can be helpful, especially if the power strips are mounted in a certain way, or I need to add clearance, make sure that there's clearance for ventilation of an asset, make sure it's not too close to the back. I can rotate this and look directly at the back, and then zoom in and look at details of the back of the rack. This is one of the first places then you can see ports, and ports for the cabinet planner are network ports or connections to power. So anything that's highlighted here in green is connected, right? It's actually connected to something else. Anything that's gray is free. And then we have this light green that would be reserved. So this would be, just like that scenario I talked about where I have a pre-procured asset that is in a rack that I want to reserve power for or reserve network ports for. Those would be designated in a different color so that I could see, oh yeah, this is something that's open currently, but it's actually reserved to be used later on. And then we have a couple other things here, right? It's patched or it's broken or unknown, some things that if we're looking at Nlyte helping us to account for, where I can place things or where assets are supposed to go, and how much do I have and how much do I have left, knowing that, you know, a port is broken lets me know, well, there's only 23 available total ports available to this patch panel. I got to use the other 23. Were there any questions? I thought I saw maybe a question being asked here.
Yeah, racks part of materials?
They are. That's a good question. Yeah. So if I look at my materials list here, if you guys can see this little search box, any material I can search on, but then this gives you a really quick look at what all encompass a material: air conditioning units, auxiliary cabinets, chassis. Commandos are like whips or receptacles, KVM switch, network materials, PDU, peripherals, power strips, servers. Software falls under that, so if you wanted to map what sort of business applications or software were available on a particular server, that's available to define. Static switches and UPSs. So if I look at a cabinet here, for example, and I'll just hit go, this will show me all of the different cabinets that we have currently in, actually, we're looking at mine, yours, and mine's 7.8, the library that I have here. Yours is 8.0 in your evaluation. So you'll have even more than this. But, you know, there's a general set of just size of different racks, and then there's a few, you know, product-specific racks that we have in here as well. And if I go into one of these, then I can see the details of, you know, the dimensions and internal and, you know, so the sort of external footprint that it fills, but then there's a different measurement for the internal mounting, you know, height and depth and width. That would be the case for this rack.
Okay. Do you already have like a preloaded library of objects? Like with racks, let's say that on the market they sell Chatsworth racks of several models.
Uh-huh.
Would you already have it preloaded into your library of objects, or is that something that we would need to make a support request for, and it will be created within 10 days?
Yeah, so I think we do have some Chatsworth racks in the latest version, but if we did not, then that's exactly what the process would be. It would be, you know, yeah, let's, you know, can you create these for us? I would say if it's only one or two different types of racks, then it'd be faster for you just go in and just enter this, you know, all you would have to do is, yeah, just enter this information yourself, and then you'll be off and running. But if it's something like, you know, several different types of storage devices or servers that have a lot of different properties, that racks are easy because they're just a certain, you just have to take the properties of, you know, how big is this and what is their internal mounting depth and that sort of stuff. Servers and storage and network devices get a little bit more complex, and I would say, hey, Nlyte, I need you to go contact the manufacturer like you did for an Nlyte supplied material and create this for me with the exact specs that the manufacturer says, right? I don't feel like searching the internet for all of these different specifications. You create it for me, right? A rack is, you could do that, but a rack is pretty easy. You'd be able to do it quicker than you'd probably be able to write an email. So, but yeah, a Chatsworth rack or something like that would fall into that, something you could request or create yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So let's see, where was I? Oh, I was here. Yeah, cabinet planner. So one of the other things, as I'm looking at in the cabinet planner view, is that I'd like to point out here is that I can look at modeling some things here on and off, or moving things in and out of a rack, and see how that changes where I might want to mount things, or how it changes my total power draw. If I look at saying, well, I want to move this, I would like to mount this somewhere else, I can change it in just by, dragging and dropping it, somewhere else, or I can move it completely out of the rack here. And I can say, well, this needs to be, oriented differently, right? I want to mount it that way, right? So you can choose exactly how you would want to mount your assets in your racks through the cabinet planner. So you can have all the different orientations that you might have in real life, right? Rear facing mounted in the front, front facing mounted in the rear, all of those different things that you might need for, in some cases, some assets may share the same use space, but they're mounted on the front and the back of the same use space, and they're shallow enough that they can share the same use space. So the orientation is important as you're thinking about that planning and being able to reflect it, what is real life in your data center. If I go into an asset, so let me go back here. I'll find a better one. So I can choose, so I've gone from bird's eye view to row view to cabinet view. Now I can go down into an asset view. So I'll choose this chassis. And let me say, I can go into just the asset itself. And this gives me this, somewhat familiar screen, right? When I created my server asset there at the beginning, I was dropped into a screen that looked like this. It shows me properties on the left and relationships on the right. So all the properties of my chassis asset are shown here. So just general information like, tag number, serial number, stuff that might be in your CMDB, right? Could be shared here or it could be managed here, however you would want to, whatever that process looks like for you guys. You could manage that information here, or you could just share it here for reference purposes. Operational information, when was it purchased, PO number. Again, a lot of CMDB type information here. Whenever you share it with Nlyte or you manage it with an Nlyte, then I get a whole other, set of questions that I could ask of, show me all of the things that were part of the tech refresh strategy. Where are they, or show me where all of the warranties are currently expired throughout my data center, or they will expire in the next 90 days. Let's kick off a process of getting rid of the stuff that the warranty's expired, or renewing the warranty or something like that. Maintenance information, ownership information, a lot of different properties that I can manage here as part of an asset record. Anytime I would want to come in and start to change some of this information, if I wanted to change tag number, serial number, all you have to do is, be in this, particular field and then edit, right? So there's another little edit button here that then you can edit and change whatever information that you like. On the right-hand side, there's property information. So this lets me know, well, what's my relationship to power, right? So how is this connected to the power supplier of this asset? So here I can see the one plug that's coming out of this chassis is going to the BL02 cabinet and power strip 2 outlet number 2. Plug 2 is power strip 1, outlet 4, right? So all of these are part of how I'm connected up to power. I can edit that, right? I can go in and I can change that, or I can then look at a trace of that. So maybe a visualization is better for me to understand how this is connected up to power, right? So this is taking all of that information and saying, well, here's how it's connected up, in a line diagram, and I can examine each one of these connections if I like. I can also use this same trace. I can say, well, that's great. I understand how this is related, how this chassis relates to, where it's receiving power. But what else is? I can see there's a couple other green dots here, right? What else is connected to this asset? All you need to do is just slide this little level slider here. That means I'm going to step back think about it as I'm looking at this asset and I'm going to step back to more of the cabinet view. And now I can see the relationships between other assets that are receiving power from the same power strips I am. Again, a great visualization. I can export this into an Excel spreadsheet. So I have, maybe somebody wants to get that information in that way. This really starts to help us understand, if we highlight or hover over, some of the information here, we can see that, the total power draw for this power strip is about almost 3 kW, but I've got another, 1 kW left of power left, or of available power to draw from for that power strip. This one is a little bit different, I think. Yep. So we've got 2.86 and this is 1.14. So this is, you can start to see where we can look at modeling failovers and understanding outage impacts because we understand what all is connected to one another. So this is, the beginnings of that. And you could keep going, right? I could go all the way out to, the PDUs that feed those receptacles and see and see, exactly, highlight the connection and see the breaker that it comes from. Also, whenever we're here, we can see there's an audit log for every asset. So in this case, this chassis, I can go and I can examine this audit log. And this audit log will show me, who changed, so the cabinet use space, the original value is 8 and the new value is 3. It's been updated. When was it updated? And then who did the updating, right? Which user? So this is a unoriginal user here of Nlyte, but that's who made the change, right? So a great way to keep track of who made which changes. In this case, this is demo data, so this is, have to take this with a grain of salt, but this transaction ID helps us start to manage, well, how was this changed? Transaction ID, if there's if this was done through a workflow process, then we'll have a transaction ID associated with it. So if you are looking at building some sort of process where only people should only make changes through workflow, which we haven't got to for Nlyte, but only make changes through workflow, and we go back and we look at our audit log and we say, oh, that was done through the bulk data manager, that was done through just the, straight up in the GUI where we edited and changed something, that is going to, that's breaking sort of the chain of the process. And so that's a good thing to keep track of, especially if you're looking to enforce that. Okay. We're at about 10 o'clock right now. Do you guys want to take maybe a 5-minute break, and then we can continue? How long do we have until, Anton, was it 11 or? Okay. Do you guys want to take maybe just a 5-minute break here, and then we can return at, start up again at 10 after or 5 after 10 o'clock? Is that all right with you guys? 10 after sounds nice. 10 after is nice? Okay. Very good. And Anton, if there's anything, I'm hoping this hits the right notes for you guys just to give you an idea of in a more detailed flow through Nlyte, and then we'll spend some time getting into your evaluation instance here in the second half.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to leave this line open. I'm just going to pause the share.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
So we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Good. Anton, we have Anton and team. Is everyone back?
I'm here.
I'm here.
All right, great.
This is here.
So yeah, I think we can continue.
Okay.
I'm here.
Very good. Okay. So, and by the way, Anton and team, don't let this, I don't want you to think that this is sort of the last, I'm going to give you this and then let you take off running, and this will be the last time that we do something like this. We can have periodic meetings and just refresher and questions that you would like answered. We can fire up one of these go-to meetings whenever you like, and get in and get more detailed in some of the things that you're trying to do. But I just want to make sure that you do have some runway and you have some comfort as you're first logging into Nlyte and how do I do things, right? Because I'm hitting you with a lot of information here. I'm sure as you get into it, you might have some more questions.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's look at your instance and show you how you'll get in it. And I'm going to show you how it differs just slightly from mine. When I say mine is 7.8, but we set you guys up with the latest and greatest on the hosted evaluation lab, which is 8.0. So let me go into your. So this is your URL, and I'll send you this, right? I'll send you this information. So this is Nlyte Demo 24. Also, your username is Nlyte Demo 24. It says 2 here, but it's Nlyte Demo 24. So you'll be able to create more users if you want to as well through Nlyte. So you don't have just this one. You can create, I think, in the demo, I think like up to 5 additional users or something like that. And then give them your own password. This is the link to where then you could use this to RDP into the boxes, into either the application server or the database server. Since we've moved the entire what I call the administration module into the GUI now, there's less of a reason to have to RDP into these boxes, but you could it's there if you guys would want to go in and take a look at the database or the database schema or what have you. So that's always an option. If I go into Nlyte Demo 24, I'll just click on that and we can see, make sure you can log in here first. And this is Nlyte Demo 24 and your password. Nope, I got it right. And you'll be dropped into this is your instance, and you'll see here this version is updated. One of the biggest or sort of obvious differences to this one than the one that you saw on mine is you have this administration module here. So this allows me to go in directly into the GUI and then go ahead and add more users. Right? So if I wanted to add more users, I could do that and then assign them to accounts. So what I would do is I'd go into an employee, I'd create an employee record, and then I would go into user accounts and assign one of these employees to a user account. Let me see something here. Looks like there's. Let me just try something here just as a.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Is there Active Directory integration?
There is, yeah. So you could absolutely have Active Directory users as your Nlyte users and assign them, permissions from just their Windows login. So that's a great way to use, forward that, username. Just come in here, have your Active Directory and Windows login, and be dropped into Nlyte.
Can you have local accounts and Active Directory accounts at the same time? I've seen some systems where it forces you to use only Active Directory after you go that route.
No, you can use either one.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure.
Either one or mixed mode?
You can use either a local Nlyte directory, so just a standalone, I'm sorry, just a regular Nlyte user, or Active Directory, or both. You can use however you like.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see something here. I'm going to make this. Oh, not that. Okay. All right. So if you wanted to add another user, you could just add him into this line and then assign him to a user account. Permissions. There are a ton of permissions here. You can see there's 914 separate permissions. But that being said, you could absolutely create some. So the permissions for Nlyte get pretty detailed. So if I look at a given user, they are down to the field level of some of the granularity that you can set. That being said, what we would then suggest is if you want to create a read-only account, you could create group permissions so that you could have, group permissions for this location, that location. That would be, read-only permissions into a particular group, particular set of assets, that sort of thing that would help you with sort of doing some of the things that you talked about. So I would get in here and play with this. Start very high level of let me create, let me create a user. Let me create a user with XYZ permissions. Can't edit the floor planner. That sort of thing. And explore the permissions sets that you have here, and we can help you with, whenever you start to set up more detailed users of what you would like to do. But I would suggest get in and take a look at that. One of the other things here is, in customization, where is it? Customization, local groups. Yep. This is where then I can add more rooms into my floor planner, right? So we have the green room and the bronze room, and these are, in New York and New Jersey and Texas, Dallas, right? You might want to have something that's closer to home. So you could go ahead and start to, go into a country and start to add new countries. You can add new states. You can add new areas, new rooms, new buildings. So maybe you just want to add another building into an existing one. Then you can highlight that and then just add from there. So so this, this would actually be floor level. This would be a building. If I start to add this, then this would be under this city. There's going to be a new building, and I can put in the, the details for that, and that will create a space for me to then have a floor plan laid out on. I would suggest whenever you're first starting to drive around Nlyte, to just sort of get used to the data that we already have there. And then the next step, once you have an idea of how to create something and move something, then to start, building a new room. But just to give you an idea what that looks like, let's do, let's say in this building, we create a new floor. So we'll do this in Tokyo. This will be out of the way from what you're currently doing. So So we'll say test floor. And we'll say this is good for test floor. And then I want to create another, I'm going to create a room. A floor is good to have, but then you have to create a room within a floor. So we'll just say this is and we can give, other details here if you want latitude, longitude of where it is in the world, right? If you want to start to place this on a map. PUE threshold, there's a number of different things that we have here. But most importantly, just give yourself a space to work inside of, right? So now that we have, this was in Tokyo, this building, now we have test floor, or I called room test floor, hold on. Right. Now if I go into my floor planner, I might have to refresh this. Did I not do it right? Maybe I didn't save it. Not seeing it here. I wonder if I'm doing something wrong. I'll look into that, why that's not showing up for you guys. But it's just, that's all you would need to do is to add to those different levels. Maybe I don't have the right permissions. I'll look at that user. The one other thing that I wanted to show you as part of this, your evaluation lab here is workflow. And I'm not sure how if you'll get into this piece of it, but I thought it was important to just show you what it is and how it works within Nlyte. So this is the ability to, so we create several different ways for you to interact with Nlyte and enter information. One of those can be through the floor planner, where I'm going to be defining a space and then clicking and editing assets, as I'm, going into the room and launching it, and maybe I want to edit this, this cabinet or this asset within a cabinet, and I can go, directly into the record to make changes. I can click down into, each one of these to look at each of the assets, right? I can change its use base. I can, do a number of things here from, the equipment configuration, what's part of it, or change its relationships as far as power is concerned. But maybe I want to, the mounted assets that are in this. That's one of the things while I'm here. The audit data has now been moved into into this area here, so you can look at audit data for a particular asset in here instead of clicking for it in this other icon. But I can choose to, come in here and edit this information just ad hoc, right? I can come in and just make any changes that I want. Or ideally, you want to start to wrap a process around the changes that you're going to be making of your assets. And workflow helps us do that. Workflow helps us define what are the steps that are going to be taken, who is going to be able to change what, and they should only be able to change it at the right time. And so you can use workflow as that regulatory method to say, well, all change should flow through this workflow. And it happens, in different stages of your maturity. I think that when folks first start off, they have, a group of administrators that have permissions to everything, and then a group of, people that are only able to read information. But then that becomes, well, let's break this into different groups of who's able to change what. But just to look at this as, what a process might look like if we're, well, it's better if we look at it from the designer, what a process might look like as we're stepping through each of the tasks. So again, just a definition set here for workflow. So we're in the workflow module. A process is a set of tasks that I might make a request from to do some work, right? A request would be installing, I need a new Windows server installed. And that step, that install Windows Server process is, 5 separate steps. And those steps we call tasks. If I look at what that looks like in the process designer, so visually, what does this process look like? We can see that it's a step of these 5 tasks. Oh, just hold on one moment. Excuse me. Okay, so these 5 tasks, I'm going to request a technical review. I'm going to create a record in Nlyte. I'm going to install and cable up the server, validate that everything is good, and then close the ticket, right? This, as you can see, can be assigned to different groups to accomplish each of these tasks. So I think, when you're thinking about Active Directory, it might be Active Directory groups that you want to drop people into, and those groups have different permissions into Nlyte. That might be a good way to start to organize this. You can set this to be individual users as well. It doesn't have to be groups, but these are the tasks that need to be completed, and each of these groups could have permissions, or each of these users could have different sets of permissions into Nlyte depending on what you want them to get done. They also are, dependent on the group or the user and the step that you're in, you'll have different levels of visibility into the forms or the information that you can enter as part of this workflow. So this gets, very robust. You can build this to be, only certain users can see certain fields, or even not only edit certain fields, but even see fields, right? This is maybe a read-only permission for this step of the process, but then the next step of the process, it's an editable field, and the next step of the process, the field is hidden from you or hidden from that user that's supposed to be, that might be doing the work. So this allows you to work through passing information from one user to the next, or obscuring information from one user to the next, depending on what part of the task that you're in, and depending on, what their permissions are. The beauty of this is that if you can draw on a whiteboard or draw out on a napkin what your process is, or maybe already have it defined in a Visio diagram of what your process for change in your data center is, then you can build it in Nlyte. You don't need a professional services engagement to do this or make the product behave the way that you want it to. It's really just a drag and drop method of and using some of these logic boxes here to make the workflow behave the way that you want it to. And if the workflow behaves that way, then the product will behave that way, and people will have to, step through the workflow process to be able to make the change and get the work done that they need to. So an example of that might be, someone might say, well, these two groups should be doing the work at the same time. So let me use this parallel activity drop in and bring that over into the workflow, and then have, each of these groups do their work at the same time. One moment, please. I'm sorry. So you can have these, so if this task is completed, then these two groups will get, or these two users would get separate task notifications that they have work to do. When that work is done, then it goes on to the validation step. If this is a yes or no answer that's coming out of here, out of request technical review, then you can use this branch container. The branch container will say, well, all right, if it's yes, go down this branch and do that parallel activity. And if it's no, then do something else. Or, stay in a loop until it is yes, until I do have permission to, or do have the approval to do that. So, that's an easy way to, that's starting to look like something real, right? And if I'm using a ticketing system to initiate these requests, and Anton, refresh my memory, do you guys have, what is your, do you have a service desk or a ticketing system that you use currently?
We use ServiceNow.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So ServiceNow, we have an integration with, we have a certified connector with. So
what about Maximo? That's the other system we use out here.
Yep, Maximo is, so Maximo, we don't have what we would call a certified connector meaning like a maintained piece of software, but that does not mean that we could not integrate with Maximo. We really can integrate with any external executable with this integration activity. So, we could use something like this that would say either receive or send values to an external process that would say, the request could come from Maximo, or the request could come from ServiceNow and say, hey, Nlyte, go do, install Windows Server process. Let me know when you're done, or, along the way, let me know, hey, I'm on step, 5 of 6, right? And pass those values back to me. So that bi-directional communication to either one of those is definitely possible. The ServiceNow one is just, we had that go through ServiceNow is a customer of ours, so we've gone through testing with them that allows us to get into their app store and that sort of thing. So that's what gives it that certified label. But that does not mean we're only limited to something like that. You can talk to Maximo with this type of integration activity. So this is something I thought I'd point out to you guys in case you wanted to take a look at what it would look like to build a workflow or to manipulate a workflow, build a form or manipulate a form that might be, part of something that, cabling add form, right, is something that we have here, and you can get in here and, start to mess with, building forms, or just see, the type of capabilities that we have. But I really wanted to show you that you have the run of the place, right? You have this instance will allow you to do and search and change whatever you like. and I hope you guys get to take advantage of it and take some time to do that. And as you do that, I think there'll be a lot of questions that come out of that, and we should have a follow-up session to say, what did you see? What did you have questions about? What did you try? What would you like to try together? Those sort of things are usually how these evaluations go. Without getting there and getting your hands dirty, then it'll be it's hard to it's hard to get all the information that you need from just me talking and sort of showing you. But getting in there, getting your hands dirty, and then coming up with some good questions for our next session would be great. Anything you guys would like to see me do, or would you like to? Would you like me to try, or questions that you have, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we have enough information for now. Probably would like to get some hands-on experience with this. Probably as we do stuff, we'll come up with questions, and then we'll ask those questions, and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Yeah. One other thing I didn't show you here is just this module is your analytics module, and you have reports and dashboards that you can explore and go through some of the reports that you have here that'll be looking at demo data, right? So I would encourage you to look through some of this demo data here just to get an idea of the reports that you can generate. Keep in mind that these are report templates. These are things that that you can expand from, or you can create your own reports from, and these are not set in stone. These are something that come with the product, but then you can make them your own as you sort of need to solve certain problems. If what, it'd be great if we could add these other columns to this report, or I don't want Nlyte software here. I want this to be a logo of my choosing, or what have you, right? You can make these more your own. Same things with dashboards. Reports are going to be more detailed. Dashboards are going to be more high-level managerial type, dashboards, right? Dashboard-looking reports. So I'd encourage you to come in and play with these. These are, a lot of these you can drill down into and get additional details of. And so, this is interesting. Power consumption. Let me write this down here. Okay. This being our evaluation lab, we have to, sometimes they need to put a couple other patches on here. This might not be, this might be something. If you guys see anything like this, let me know, and we'll get it resolved. But I would encourage you guys to, examine some of these reports and let me know what you think. Let me know what you see, and if you have any questions, this is a good place to, maybe write a few questions down about some of the data that you see. But that's everything I was hoping to show for today. And unless there's anything else, you guys, I'll send you the login information. I'll let you have at it.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Guys, thank you for your time. I know you guys are busy, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to go through some of these things.
Thank you.
Great, man. I'm sending the creds over right now.
All right. Thank you, Anthony.
Anton, let me know anything else you need, and I'll be happy to help. Thank you.
We'll probably come back with questions within a week or so.
Very good. Yes, sir. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.